Okay, this is day 3, hold on. Still getting used to this mic, this setup here. Okay, day 3. So where I left off yesterday, for anybody who watched, I talked about some differences, similarity, well mainly the differences between US and Korea. Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of differences. Let me cross the street that I crossed before. All right. Hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna go a different way to work today. And so maybe every day I'll take another way. So there's actually multiple ways to go to work usually. Actually I think total there's this way, that way, that way, that way. There's like 4 or 5 different ways to get to my work, so I will take another way. So maybe every day I'll switch it up. Anyways, yesterday I was talking about, I ended on the modern differences. So I talked about internet and public transportation. Actually, I realized after watching my video, when I was talking about public transportation, I didn't really explain why the public transportation is good. I just said it's good and it's cheap. But really, it's just placed in such convenient places throughout all of Korea. There's bus stops just about everywhere you can think of, and yeah. So in the bus stops, and once you get into Seoul, there's the subway system, and after, if you want to go somewhere really far, you have the metro system, and also, in the case of wanting to travel, kind of far, but don't want to take KTX or something like that, you could take another bus system. It's usually in Seoul, you would go to something called the Express Bus Terminal. Now, all of which go just pretty much all over the country, and the thing you have to know is that like all of them are relatively inexpensive. So for example, from Seoul to the Express Bus Terminal, from Seoul to somewhere called Sokcho, it's like about a 2 or 3 hour drive or something like that, and the cost of the fare is about like $18, something like that. Yeah, so public transportation is really, really nifty here, and I take it all the time because I don't have a car, and if you just have a bus card, you're set. Now taxis is the same way. Taxis are really cheap. That's usually, $3 to start for the first however many kilometers or something like that. It's like, I think it's like 4 kilometers or something. You get for free, or not free, but for $3, or what they call, it's like 3,000 won, or Samcheon won. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of public transportation. I talked about internet yesterday. Now let's talk about similarities. Now, as you know, there was once in another time a war between North Korea, South Korea, and the U.S. was involved in that war, as well as China with the North. But anyways, the U.S. has kind of had a very, very strong influence on a lot of things here. That's not me being an American saying that. It's an obvious thing. When you have other countries that aren't as influenced, aren't as influenced by us, it's just a different situation. Yeah, I'm strictly speaking about like the way they do things, convenience stores and stuff like that. It's very, very similar to the US, very similar to what we know today. Churches are a big thing here. It's probably, I would also say, you know, a rather American influence, because most of them are typically Baptist. I think I'd probably say that most of them are Baptist-based churches and tend to be a little bit more reserved or conservative. So, yeah, that's kind of one of the major influences. I would have to say the churches, maybe basically the convenience stores, a couple other things. I wouldn't say it was like a tremendous amount of influence all the time, but definitely influence. You're gonna get that no matter what. Especially in the language, because they have something called Konglish in Korean, which Konglish is any English word that it has its, you know, own Korean counterpart, basically. For example, like ice cream. They don't have a word for ice cream. I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's an actual word for ice cream originally, because I believe even North Korea has a different word for ice cream. It was probably originated from like China or something. Anyways, a lot of those things come, you know, like ice cream. The way they would pronounce it is very similar to how you would pronounce it in the U.S. The U.S. American accent, for that matter. Okay, so American influences, I've talked about that. Talked about modern differences. Some really cool pop cultural things I like here. I'll talk about that now. PC bongs. Now, internet cafes aren't really a popular thing in the U.S. Many people don't go to them, and if there are some PC bongs, or you know, internet cafes or whatever you want to call them, they don't usually last. Maybe in bigger cities, and I've never been to like a major big city that had like a thriving PC room, but here they're everywhere. They're just, you can go to any city and there'd be a PC bong. That is like the coolest thing to me. It's really it's like one of my favorite things about Korea. I know that sounds like super nerdy, but I'm a nerd, so I really like to go to PC bongs every once in a while. Even though I have my own PC, it's like, I don't know, it's just the general feeling of being in a room with a ton of other gamers and stuff like that. Now, mind you, most people here, as far as you know, games and stuff and the things they like, most of them right now are playing either Overwatch or League of Legends. And the other, like, you know, 20% of them are probably playing FIFA. So, I don't know what it is, but FIFA is a really popular thing here, besides Overwatch and League of Legends. And actually, Overwatch is getting even bigger. But, actually, something that's beginning to come up is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which I really like. You know, it's kind of difficult here when you like a certain game, especially for me. There's plenty of other games I play that aren't really big in Korea. If not, maybe like 1 or 2 people play them here. But it becomes difficult because when I want to connect to a game that's, you know, not popular here, I have to connect to the US servers, and that's, you know, my ping goes way up. Yeah, so anyways, getting into a game of Overwatch and League is no problem, and you will have a really good experience with that. Any other game besides that, if you want to play online, it tends to get difficult because not many people support a Korean server, let alone an Asian server. So that's actually, I know it sounds really stupid, but PC Bong is probably one of my favorite things about Korea. It sounds so weird to say, but yeah, I would probably say another thing I really like is like the accessibility of food, and in a very short amount of distance. It doesn't take long for you to actually go out and find something to eat if you're hungry for something, and usually kind of at a cheap price. And not everything is cheap, especially where I live. It's, you know, where I live right now, it's a rather new city called Uide, and yeah, it can tend to be a little bit pricier. And, you know, the trade-off is you get pretty decent food, but it's still more expensive. yeah, but there are some really cheap places out there. Like one of them's called Kimbap Jongkook. Kimbap Jongkook. You know, basically general Korean food, and is really delicious. Yeah, so maybe next video I talk about, because I'm about to end it here, I'll talk about more of my favorite things I like about Korea. You know, I've just talked about some differences and similarities, but really it's kind of fun to talk about the things I really like so far. So anyways, that's all for now, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys liked it, put a thumbs up. All right, see you tomorrow.